And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we're actually talking about the NBA, and we'll be talking about the weekly wrap up here. So, I'll be talking about some of the storylines here over the last couple games. I'll also be talking about some of the statistics and things like that in comparison to some future stars here in the NBA, which could actually be MVPs this season. Before I jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank Anchor for being our platform. Let me go ahead and thank Spotify as well, which is now or formerly was Anchor, so it's now Spotify podcast where you can find it. You can also find us on YouTube under Real Talk Sports with Rico. Want to thank the fans out there who have liked and subscribed to the show. We definitely appreciate that. That helps us drive stories to the show and content. And I want to go ahead and thank the sponsors out there for putting sponsorship on the show. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and let's jump right into the NBA and all the hot topics to go with it. And you guys know I have some slides here for you. So let us start off with the first, and that is going to be the Lakers win 123-118 versus the San Antonio Spurs. And I had to throw in my thoughts here. Wemby versus LeBron James. And, I think that LeBron James, in a lot of ways, respectively said after the game that there is no ceiling for Victor Wembanyama. You guys know that I've had a chance to actually go out and watch Victor Wembanyama in his first NBA action in the Summer League. And I think that it is fair to say that Victor Wembanyama is not just a unicorn, but he is an alien out there. And I think he comparatively is compared to LeBron James for a lot of ways statistically. And I say that he's an alien because he is something that the NBA has probably never seen before and may never ever see again, guys. He is like seriously a combination between LeBron, KD. He hasn't shown a bit of that Michael Jordan or Kobe just yet, but I definitely think that that is for sure out there. He's also showed a little bit of Luka with the Euro steps and things like that, guys. He had a phenomenal game and actually made history in this one. He had 27 points. He had 5 blocks, 5 steals, and 10 rebounds. After the game, Austin Reeves said that this guy blocks everything, and he literally was like, dude, I stopped counting the blocks. But meanwhile, we have to give LeBron James credit. He's coming off an ankle injury, something that he talked about as well after the game, saying that the Lakers and him had already planned this out. They knew that this was a stretch that they were going to go ahead and take advantage so he could get treatment and then hopefully be able to finish the season strong. I think that we should definitely give LeBron James credit where credit is due, guys, especially in an era right now where the league has basically had to implement, you have to play 65 games to be eligible, so to speak, for awards and things like that. The fact that LeBron James could have skipped this game and didn't skip it for the home crowd, and you got a chance to possibly see the torch being passed because this is the last time that Wembanyama would, in all intensive purposes, be in LA to face LeBron James because it doesn't look like the Spurs are going to make the playoffs. And so for him to actually play into that game, I think was huge. And I think we need to give LeBron James some credit. And I definitely think that this was a game for the ages, guys. Definitely go out there and check the replay if you have not already. Next up, guys, the next major story that we have to talk about here in the NBA as far as recapping the last couple games is got to be the Bucks. I led with after the All-Star break, could the Bucks pull it together? And I will give the Bucks credit where credit is due. They were actually able to come in and get a huge win here on the road in Minnesota, which is very difficult. You guys know I talked about how Doc Rivers was 3-7 coming in. They were previously 30-13 under Adrian Griffin. Probably one of the strangest fires, I think, in all the NBA, at least since I've been watching it, to have a team really have a winning record and have that much success, but still really have that kind of dissension, I guess, in the locker room where it didn't work out and they had to go a different direction. So, kudos for Doc Rivers stepping in. I do agree with him saying that, hey, he wouldn't want to wish this on anybody. I definitely understand it's a tough situation. I believe he actually played in Marquette, so it's actually kind of a homecoming for him. And, Doc Rivers, look, he led a team here that had lost to the Grizzlies, had lost to a team in Miami that didn't have Jimmy Butler, and all they did was they had a good all-star break between Giannis and Dame, and I was like, hey, maybe perhaps they get some momentum. And it was. They came out, they beat the Timberwolves 112 to 107 in that particular game. And, I think it was huge for the Timberwolves, man, to be out there and come out here and get this win because, not a lot of things were going well for them. And in this particular game, guys, they actually were up and Minnesota made a run. And surprisingly, the Bucks were able to get stops when they needed to. They had actually been giving up 111 points here. So to give up 107 points is pretty good here. Actually, excuse me, 118 points. They gave up 107. They gave up 111 when they won the championship. So that's very good with what they were able to do. Giannis had 33 points. He had 5 assists and 13 rebounds. Dame Lillard, 21 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds. So almost a triple-double. But I think what was huge for me and the huge takeaway in this game when I was watching it is that Dame was able to do what Dame does and hit timely baskets. There was probably about 20, 30 seconds left in the game, and Dame Lillard was able to back his defender down, turn to his left, get to the baseline, and shoot it. And as soon as it left his hand, I knew it was going in. The trajectory of the ball looked so good. But that is the type of Dame Lillard that we are used to. And I think that the fact that him and Giannis were able to basically get on the same page, they knew where the ball needed to go there in a critical stretch with the Timberwolves threatening them. They were able to take care of business. So kudos to now the Bucks, who are now 4-7. Hopefully they're able to pull it together here for the last 20 some games or so. And on the other side of this thing, Anthony Edwards, who you guys know that I feel like is perhaps the MVP this year, 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Gobert had 19 points and 12 rebounds as well. Bobby Portis had 14 off the bench for the Bucks, and Towns had 22 and 14 rebounds. Really had a huge fourth quarter. And the one thing that I will say about the Timberwolves right now is I believe they are 25th right now in the pace of play that they actually have in the NBA, which is close to last in the NBA. But I think this has really been beneficial, I think, for the Timberwolves, because when the Timberwolves were starting off, the one knock about them was they didn't have an identity. They would be the type of team, and I talked about this in the preseason, where they would be up by 10, 20 points, but then they would blow a lead. And it's because the pace of play. They would take erratic shots. They would go too fast for what they had. And I think that the Timberwolves are really settling in and they understand how to utilize Towns and Gobert. The question is, are they defensively going to be good enough? And will Gobert be able to defensively play the way he wants to and not get exposed by a perimeter forward or center? I think that is going to be the question for them. That could be the real center for them. But in my opinion, the takeaways from this is that Anthony Edwards, to me, is still the MVP, even though I think Shai Gilgeous is a quiet second. Not a quiet second, a close second. That was the wrong word. Close second. And we'll be talking about that here pretty soon. But a good game, nevertheless, and a good start here for the Milwaukee Bucks. Next up, the Clippers. And the question was, were they for real? This is one of the burning questions that we had for them this week so far. If you're looking at the screen, actually, I'll take this down. They actually lost to OKC and they won against the Grizzlies. And statistically going into this one, it was a tough loss against the Grizzlies. I mean, they got beat 129 to 107. Granted, Russell Westbrook had a tough going home, so to speak, party there. You know, James Harden and him actually played there on the same team and went to the finals there. So a tough night for Russ there, and a better night, I think, for Harden, who had 17, 6, and 2 in that one. But the real key for this one is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 31 points. He had 8 assists and 4 rebounds in this one. You had Jalen Williams had 18 points. Chet Holmgren had 19 points. Giddey had 12 points. And yes, I could say that the Clippers are probably for real in the sense that I think that they're going to go ahead and be able to wrap up the Pacific Division. It would take probably a massive flop for them to not take care of business, which I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it looks like for all intents and purposes, they're going to win the West. But more so, I think that we should say that the OKC Thunder are very serious here. I think that Oklahoma City is definitely shown right here in a game like this against an elite talent like this. They're very deep. And the one thing that I love about them, and this is something that I think Vince Carter talked about on the NBA on TNT, the after show, when they were trying to pick, who would come out of the West. Man, it's tough not to really start to like OKC. I think that OKC is so young, they just don't know any better. And I think that that's what you saw with this Clippers game. Like, they supremely dismantled the Clippers. Like, they took away a lot of the things that they wanted to get done. For instance, like Kawhi, he had 23 and 2 in this one. In the next game against the Grizzlies, he had 24, 8 and 4. So, I mean, just right there defensively, you got a chance to see that OKC was able to keep Kawhi off the boards. They were able to play the passing lanes very well and take away a lot of the things that Kawhi and those guys have been able to do. Quite frankly, they made Paul George a bit uncomfortable out there. I know he had a stuffed stat line, but he's been really off the last couple of games. He had 14, 7, and 6 against OKC. He had 14 and 5 against the Memphis Grizzlies. And so, they mitigated Russ, and, Harden, though he scored, he didn't score kind of the way that he had been scoring prior to them coming in. So, I've got to give a lot of credit to the Thunder. Defensively, they're a lot better. I think that Shea Gillis has matured a lot better. And I think that the one thing about the Thunder is that they know who their guys are. And they do a great job of getting the ball to their guys when they need to score. And this is something that I just alluded to with the Timberwolves in the last segment here, is that, it's good that the Timberwolves actually have a certain playing style. And I think that that's what OKC has really come down to. They've got a certain playing style. And I was curious to see what they were going to do with Chad Holmgren. And I like the fact that with Chad Holmgren, they haven't just made this guy a guy that he had to be a traditional center. I think that because the spacing has been so good, the passing has been so good, you're starting to see that Chad Holmgren is now starting to fill out as kind of a Kevin Durant / Joel Embiid. And I'm going to say Joel Embiid in the sense that he's not as physical in the post, but he certainly will go into there. So the spacing, the pace has been great for OKC. The answer to the question right now, I guess the Clippers are for real. And more so, I want to put out there that the Thunder are for real as well. Next up, guys, we're looking at the future of the league and talking about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and talking about Anthony Edwards. Look, man, I think that these two, to me, the question is, can either one of them win the MVP this season? And I think it's Anthony Edwards, although the week that Shea Gillis has had this week has been phenomenal. The last two games, I believe he had 31 or 34 yesterday night. And look, both teams are playing very well. And it's interesting to me that Wemby would go against LeBron. I just talked about how Wemby is the future of the league. And I think that all these guys really are the future of the league. And I talked about leading into this show on the last show that I'm like, look, there's a chance that LeBron, KD, and Steph Curry could miss the playoffs. And these guys could be the future that we're going to be looking at very, very soon. And let me do a comparison of how good that these guys have actually been over their course of, I believe, of their 4-year career at this point in time. Actually, Shea Gillis has played 6 years, Anthony Edwards has played 4. Both have had 2 playoff appearances. Both have had 2 all-star appearances. Shea Gillis has actually made an all-NBA team, and Shea Gillis has made an all-NBA team first team. Anthony Edwards, I'm sure, is going to make it this year. But in comparison, you're looking at their career averages. Anthony Edwards averages 22.7 points per game. Shea Gillis at 22.6 per game. The rebounds, Edwards at 5.1 rebounds per game. Shea Gillis at 4.7 rebounds per game. The assists total, Anthony Edwards 4 assists per game. Shea Gillis 4.8 assists per game, both averaging about 1.4 steals per game. And Anthony Edwards 0.6 in the blocks, 0.8 for Shea Gillis here. Total points 6,264 for Anthony Edwards, 8,266 for Shea Gillis. And, the field goal percentage is pretty close too. 44.6 for Anthony Edwards, 40.96 496, excuse me, for Shea Gillis. So 44% and 49% for Shea Gillis. 3-point percentage, 35% for both, 35.8 actually for Anthony Edwards, 35.2 for Shea Gillis. The free throw percentage, Anthony Edwards slightly under 80%. You have Shea Gillis at 85%. And so, look, man, these guys are like 1A and 1B at this point in time. I just kind of broke down kind of what they're doing comparatively speaking, guys. And look, I love the Joker. I love everything about the Joker, guys. And I love Joel Embiid. And I think that before Joel Embiid went down, he was the MVP. But I think that even by the time Joel Embiid gets back, if he gets back this year, by the time he gets his wind under him, he's probably going to be disqualified as far as the games played. I think that the Joker has been an impact on Denver's winning, but I think that arguably speaking, man, between Anthony Edwards and Shea Gillis Alexander, nobody's impacted their team statistically than these two guys. And I think that it's just a 1A, 1B. I'm not going to be mad if Shea Gillis wins the MVP. I wouldn't be mad if Anthony Edwards wins the MVP. But the bottom line is this: no other player in the NBA right now is better than those two. With regards to Kawhi, I know he's having a great year, but these two players have been phenomenal. And the great thing about it is they're so young, at the amount of years that they played, the 4 and 6. And so I think that you've got these guys for probably the next decade. Hopefully they're able to stay injury free. I know Shea Gillis has had some little soft tissue injuries and things like that throughout his career, but I think it's something that he's kind of turned the corner from. And I think Anthony Edwards, for the most part, has been healthy. I know he's been out due to some knee injuries and things like that, but it hasn't been anything major for him. So, I think we're definitely looking at the future of the league, guys. And moving forward, guys, the last segment here, we're talking about the NBA standings for this week. So not a whole bunch changing, starting with the East. The one thing that I'll point out here is that the Cavaliers, they lost 2 games out of the All-Star break. And I don't think that we should look too much into that. One thing we should look at is the fact that Donovan Mitchell's health, he's been ill. So I think that that's certainly impacted the Cavs and how hot that they were. Obviously, I think you could probably slide him in as a top 5 candidate for the MVP. But, that's why the Cavs have lost the last couple games. The Celtics took care of my Bulls, drummed them there early to come out of the break. So they looked pretty good. The Bucks, we just talked about how they just got a huge win against the Timberwolves. The Knicks right now are playing Boston, guys, and that's in a pretty tight contest, they're 34-22. The Knicks are playing very well. I think that they're going to get even better once they get Julius Randle back. The 76ers, they almost gave away the game against the Cavs here last night. And, the question for them is they made the deal for Buddy Hield. I just talked about Joel Embiid, and I just don't know what Philly is going to have down the stretch run because it's clear to me that they are really in a situation where they need a center. They didn't make any moves, and they didn't get anything off the buyout market, and they need something on the buyout market because from the center position, I don't think that they're getting what they thought that they were going to get from Paul Reed at this point in time. So that's something to look forward for the Sixers here. The Pacers have cooled off since their hot start, but I believe they're going to make the playoffs and not be in a play-in situation the way Holland Burton has played, and these guys have played phenomenal, leading the league in scoring and pace. The Heat starting to come on, and the question about the Heat is this. It's going to be all about Jimmy Butler and the health of the Miami Heat. They have not been consistent with their starting lineup, and I think that was one of the key things for the Miami Heat down the stretch is that they had all the pieces that they needed healthy and in the rotation. They've already shipped off Lowry. Terry Rozier, I don't know if it's necessarily been a good fit there. I think it's affected Jaime Jaquez and his minutes over there. But if anybody can figure it out, it's Coach Spoelstra. the Bulls and Magic, I think the Magic wonders about the Magic's one of the better young franchises that are up and coming here with all the pieces that they have. And if you haven't got a chance to watch them, you are really in for a treat if you get a chance to watch Franz Wagner out there and his brother Mo, and also too Anthony Black, Wendell Carter Jr., a former Bull out there playing well. So, and then also Pablo Benchero, who is absolutely phenomenal. So a great team to watch. The Bulls, my Bulls, my Bulls, they are in limbo at this point in time. They didn't make any moves, and I think that they're still trying to figure things out. I think another huge blow here is that they have actually shut down Patrick Williams for the season with an ankle injury. And that's been a question because now he's going to go into a contract year. He declined an extension in the summertime. And I don't know if Patrick Williams has really shown me enough to go ahead and warrant another contract. I know that that was kind of the situation with Kobe White, and Kobe White was kind of a prove me wrong kind of deal, and he did. And I think he's on a team friendly deal, which I think could possibly change, especially if they move on from Levine. But, the question is, could the Bulls get in a situation where they're like the Miami Heat of last season? There is that potential because to me, Boston is just an injury away. You're seeing what's going on with the Cavs. If they lose Donovan Mitchell, they're a bit inconsistent. The Bucks are still trying to find their way. They haven't been able to stop a nosebleed defensively. And then the Sixers, without Joel Embiid, are very vulnerable. And the Pacers, those guys can be had. So I think there is a real hope for the Bulls if you're out there as a Bulls fan that maybe they do make a run here. They did call up the young man from I think from Europe here. He was a former slam dunk champion. He's been playing very well in the G League here that they called up at forward. So I'm curious to see if he can provide some outside shooting here for them. So, that's kind of the story on the East. If we look at the West side of things, Timberwolves still holding tough. I know that they did lose to the Bucks, but they're looking pretty good. The Thunder certainly looking very healthy out there at 39-17. As far as the Nuggets, Pelicans, and Mavs, and the Clippers, I think we know the Nuggets are going to be there. I'm going to give them the respect because they have been champions in this league. And I think certainly they're going to be there at the end and a force to be reckoned with. The Pelicans are now starting to come on here, starting to get a lot more better play out of Zion Williams. Would love to see him as a better rebounder. The Mavs are looking pretty good. And I think that Jason Kidd said it best when he said, this is the deepest team that the Mavericks have had in quite some time. And I certainly agree with that. And you guys know that I was high on Derek Lively, and I have been telling people about Derek Lively. He's been a phenomenal rookie out of Duke. And in a lot of ways, to me, he fits the mold of what Tyson Chandler used to do for them when they won the finals. And he also fits the mold of a Jared Allen, which is what you need, I think, in the common NBA here. I think looking at the Bulls and what they have with Andre Drummond and why that lineup's worked is because you need a lob threat and you need a defensive presence and a guy that can rebound in there. And you don't have to run plays for. I think you either have that center or you have like a Joker type of center or an Embiid type of center or a Chat Holmgren or a Wemby, somebody that can step in and out. And so I think that that's really helped the Mavs as far as spacing is concerned, because you look at Kyrie, you look at his handle, you look at his ability to get anywhere on the floor. The fact that he's able to slide passes down to Lively and guys like that have been huge for them. Tim Hardaway having a career year, junior at this point. And Luka, as he continues to learn a little bit more about leading the team and about being consistent on both ends, you're starting to see why this guy really could be an MVP at some point in time. I'm still looking for him to not question the ref so much and continue to play hard. That'd be my biggest deal. But Luka's certainly for real in the West. The Kings and the Suns and the Lakers. The Kings have been a bit of a disappointment this year after sneaking up on the NBA last season. I think if anybody's going to change that, is going to be Mike Brown. Certainly 2 all-star snubs in De'Aaron Fox, who's having a career year, and Sabonis is having a great year. But I just think that their depth alongside of them has not been as good this year. They've been inconsistent, with Barnes out there, with Keegan Murray, who I thought was going to have a better year than he's having this year. So they've got to really find that out. The Suns, like I said, man, the Suns, the Lakers, Golden State, like they're in danger of falling out of the playoff potential here. Now, the one thing that has scared me about the Suns is this: a they're not a deep roster. And I've said that they're top heavy. Bradley Beal has already missed a ton of games. Devin Booker has missed some games, but not as much. They're like an injury seriously away, guys, from being the bottom half of the West. And I cannot believe in the Phoenix Suns at this point. Even if they get into the playoffs at an A seed, I mean, yeah, they might be a tough out, but I just don't think that they're going anywhere as constructed. They need to get more depth on that team to go along with them. It almost, if I could put one thing on the Suns are basically what what the Brooklyn Nets were when KD and Kyrie were there. It's the same team. The Lakers, injuries. Can the Lakers get LeBron, AD, and the rest of the unit together for the full season? I think that one of the things about the Lakers is that they've been trying multiple lineups. They're trying to figure out what's going to work. And at this point in time, Darvin Ham is running out of time to figure out who's going to be who. And I think that Austin Reeves has finally got his legs under him now after his Team USA and that long summer that he's had. And so I think that they're going to have to start to get valuable contributions from Hachimura, from Austin Reeves. D'Angelo Russell is going to have to be consistent. Spencer Dinwiddie, I didn't like how he came out in his first game. It looks like he's going to have to turn into a spot-up shooter, which that's essentially what happens when you come and you play with LeBron and AD. You're going to have to learn how to knock down some shots. And it's a little scary, man, because he's not as aggressive and getting downhill like I would have expected him to do. I thought that they thought they were going to get somebody to open it up in the second unit and kind of get them playing a little bit faster, and that hasn't happened. Golden State probably holds the most optimistic out of all those teams, guys. I know you can't see them, but they've been a bit on a run here, and I think that now that they've got Draymond Green there, now that they've decided to go with Klay Thompson on the bench and they've gone with Pazinski, who to me is like Dante DiVincenzo 1A, basically. It's like a younger version of him, and he's pretty good and he can shoot the basketball. Like, man, I didn't know that this guy could be very good. I actually know a guy where his son actually played against him in college, and, he was like, I don't know, he didn't really show us too much when we played against him. But I guess now you're starting to see why Golden State loves this guy, why he certainly has moved a Hall of Famer to the bench at this point in time. And kudos to my guy, Klay. Kudos, excuse me, to Klay, because he scored 35, I believe, off the bench in Utah, embracing his off the bench role. And I think he wants to stay with Golden State. I don't see a scenario where Golden State breaks it up. Steph Curry just signed, Steve Kerr, the head coach, just signed an extension which matches Stephen Curry's contract for the next 2 seasons. So I think that the band is going to stay together. And look, as long as they can get this contributions from Kuminga, these guys are going to be something to be reckoned with. I don't know if I want to see them in a play-in situation. I wouldn't want to see them in the A seed because they have that championship pedigree. And not to take any away from the Thunder or the Timberwolves, if anybody would have the kryptonite for teams like that, these younger teams, and even the Clippers, and even in a sense the Nuggets, it would be Golden State. Because Golden State has more championships than all those teams combined. So their experience is something I don't want to see. Neither would I want to see LeBron. I wouldn't want to see that either, but Golden State is the team that I would really want to circle that we want to look for in the West. And with that being said, guys, that is today's show. We went over some of the young future here in the NBA, the Bucks, the Clippers. We talked a little bit about Wemby and LeBron James and that reaction there. So with that being said, guys, I just want to go ahead and thank the fans out there for going ahead and chiming in on a week-to-week basis and following the show. Make sure that you head over to Spotify where you can actually find the podcast there. You can also find it on YouTube under Real Talk Sports with Rico. All the notes are going to be below if you need to get the links to the shows. And then also, too, I just want to go ahead and thank the sponsors out there for putting sponsorship on the show. Thanks again for the fans out there who have actually listened to the show, subscribed. We definitely appreciate the feedback that has helped us drive content to the show. And so for myself, guys, this is Rico, Real Talk Sports. Peace. I will see you guys on the next show. We'll be talking more NBA, and then I think we'll be talking a little baseball as well. Guys, I'll see you guys later. Peace.